many lost, but tell me who has won. The trenches dug within our hearts. And mothers, children, brothers, sisters, counterparts. Sunday, bloody Sunday. Sunday, bloody Sunday.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Tonto's Demise Week 2 recap for the season 2020. This one, should I have not changed my final parting quote? Because I wished harm upon no one and success on everyone. And we got just about as close to the opposite of that as possible. It was Sunday, Bloody Sunday. It was almost comical in that it just, during the 1 o'clock games, it just kept happening. Somebody is hurt. This person is hurt. Now this person is hurt. And it just kept happening. It would not stop. Literally, it's not funny. I'm not making fun of anybody for getting hurt. Like it got to the point of absurdity. Maybe that's a better description of it. But yeah, this was a tough weekend for a lot of people. A lot of people had injuries already to some major players. And the top two picks in the draft are currently, one's gone for the year and one is gone for at least a few weeks. They're saying 4 to 6 about McCaffrey. Obviously the number one pick. Will he I believe he's already said, I will beat that timetable. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I'm shooting personally for the 4 to 6 weeks. That would put him back. If he misses 4 weeks minimum, that would mean he comes back. He would miss weeks 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I do believe week 6 is when I play Justin. So just gonna say I wouldn't mind him not having McCaffrey to trot out there that day. Although, is it the unsportsmanlike thing to say? Maybe. But hey, it's a dog-eat-dog fantasy world, and I will take a win any way I can get it. So, that's pretty much the general summary of what happened here in week 2. Look back at the recap. I was looking through some stuff on YouTube last year, and I realized that on week 1 here last week, I wore my same Chris Farley Chive t-shirt every podcast or every review last year, and I wore it again last week, and I realized I need to switch it up this year for my for the reviews here. So I went with a different Chive shirt. This one is the Three Amigos. So this will be the year of the Three Amigos, and we will be brandishing that one from here on out instead of the Chris Farley one. And perhaps I will have to look into something different for next year during the course of the next coming year. So something to look forward to if you enjoy the Three Amigos, I guess. All right, how about we jump right into it with the first matchup here in week 2. And as always, we start with the defending champion from Gags to Riches. And I actually had a couple different songs I was thinking about opening with this week, and with this matchup in mind. The Waiting, Tom Petty was definitely in there. And also Misery by Soul Asylum was in there as contenders. Mostly in reference, The Waiting especially, to the Mighty Midgets this week and last week, I should add. He has had to agonizingly wait until the very end of the game to be handed a defeat. Once again, this week, in even more gut-wrenching fashion, Mighty Midgets falls to Gags and from Gags to Riches. The final score here is 181.75 to 181.15. Double check those numbers. They seem to be good. A 0.6 victory for Gags to Riches. And as you probably know, Gags had only Emmanuel Sanders left to go on Monday night. I believe he was trailing Mighty Midgets by about 2.2, something like that. So he needed 2.3. And Emmanuel Sanders had 0 until literally the very last garbage time, pointless drive of the game. The Raiders had just kicked a field goal to make it a 10-point game with a minute left, maybe even less. And so it was a 2-score game. The Saints were down to, I think, only one timeout. There was really nothing that they could do at that point, and they came out. I don't believe they scored, but they drove down the field a little bit. And, of course, the very first throw was an 18-yard completion to Emmanuel Sanders with, said literally 30, 40 seconds left in the game. They ran maybe one more play, maybe two, and that was it. A dagger in the heart of the Mighty Midgets, once again, finding a way to lose. I know podcasters like to talk about how the Mighty Midgets in previous seasons seem to have a solid roster, but always find a way to lose. Well, perhaps this year, that's how it is going to be for him with these 1 point or less final minutes of the Monday night game. A slow, drawn-out death, painful and agonizing. How much longer can he tolerate it? What is Mighty Midget's pain threshold? I think we are going to, this is the year we will find out for sure. Anyway, should I actually talk about the matchup? For Gags to Riches, the winner in this matchup, he had Deshaun Watson go for 41.5, Julio, Sanders, and A.J. Green. Like I said, Sanders went for 2.8. A.J. Green almost just under 6. And Julio Jones only 4.5. So it looks like about 12 points total from your 3 wide receivers there. Perhaps explains why you kicked one of them to the curb here earlier this evening in a trade. Running backs, Tariq Cohen. And speaking of trades, Nick Chubb. Let's see. Tariq Cohen. I don't know what I was thinking to say there. I don't. So, pardon me. Cohen, 3.5. Nick Chubb, said recently acquired. Nick Chubb, almost 29.5 points from him. Tight end, Travis Kelce, he started the season on fire. 24 points from him this week after about, looks like 17 last week. And I actually saw Gags was going back and forth a little bit on his flex play. I think he had Benny Snell in there at some point. Saturday night, Sunday morning, I'm pretty sure. But he ended up switching it back to Higbee, which ended up actually saving his week because Higbee only had 5 catches, but 3 of them were touchdowns, and he went for 28.5 points. Kicker was Tucker from Baltimore. He went for about 16. And then the Arizona defense, Yahoo says 16. It was probably about 25. I'm going to guess based on the score, the difference there. So, again, Emmanuel Sanders just barely gets it done to squeak past the Mighty Midgets. He had Matt Ryan go for 55.5. His wide receivers, Hopkins, Lamb, and Mike Williams. Hopkins goes for 20.8, Lamb 17.5, and Williams 3.5, shuffling his lineup a little bit from week 1 there. I don't know if he started, I think probably started Deshaun Jackson last week, decided to pull him out and put both Eagles tight ends in his starting lineup this week. And Jackson actually had a better game. If you would have flexed, Gibson. I think you had both of those guys in your starting lineup. Week 1, Deshaun Jackson and Antonio Gibson from the Redskins there. And if you had not tinkered with your lineup and kept it the same, you would have won this matchup. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. Your running backs, Mixon and Eckler, 12.5 for Mixon, 18.8 for Eckler. A lot of you are probably feeling much better. Those who invested in Los Angeles Chargers after the performance put on by, Justin Herbert, the rookie quarterback that they drafted, who didn't know he was going to play until the national anthem. And they started him, and my gosh, he looked fantastic. They still said, Tyrod Taylor obviously had some health issues, a little bit of scary health issues with a breathing, perhaps heart issue. But I think he seems to be okay. However, the Chargers coach has said that whenever he's healthy, Tyrod is still their starting quarterback, which I would find that hard to believe after this week's performance, especially against Kansas City, a pretty tough defense, and they really dominated them for most of the game. Mahomes had a tough time. Their defense played well. They put up points right down the field several times there. So maybe Herbert will not look as good in some other games. We'll see how he does if he gets a couple more starts. But if you have Keenan Allen, if you are the person out there who has Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry, and I know who you are, you're probably feeling a little bit better about yourself and your team if he becomes the starter going forward. Anyway, like I said, Mighty Midgets started both Eagles tight ends, Zach Ertz and Goddard. Ertz goes for 9.2 and Goddard exactly 7. Your kicker, Gold, goes for about just over 8. And then the Chicago Bears defense, they went for, Yahoo says 16, just like Arizona, but I believe the total for them must have been about, 28, something like that, I'm going to guess. But again, I've gone on enough about it already. Pretty much any lineup decision that Mighty Midgets made that would have been different would have won him this matchup. Said based on his lineup tinkering between weeks 1 and week 2. It's going to be a tough decision, I think, every week going forward, having both of those Eagles tight ends, not knowing are they both going to do well? One of them's going to do well, or are they both going to be bad? Which one's going to be the one that goes off this week? That's going to be a tricky decision each week. Although looking at your bench, now that Cortland Sutton is on IR, you might, and depending on how Antonio Gibson plays here going forward, you might just want to roll the dice with Ertz and Goddard every week. So that will be something interesting to watch as we move forward. Gags to Riches and his title defense coming along nicely thus far. He is 2-0. He is in third place, while the Mighty Midgets unfortunately dropped to 0-2, and they are in 11th place. All right, did we have any other close matchups here? No. So let's go to Yinzer Jags versus Ed Lager. This one goes to Yinzer Jags. The final score, 187.8 to 137.2. For Yinzer Jags, exactly 60 points from Kyler Murray. Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen, and Amari Cooper. I believe Adams and Thielen last week went for about 75 points between the two of them. This week they went for 12. Amari Cooper outscored those two combined this week with 16 points. Your running backs, Mostert, first play of the game, he runs for an 80-yard touchdown. I believe it was one of the fastest times recorded in the NFL for several years, if not the fastest, one of the top 2 or 3. He was flying down the field past everybody. It was pretty impressive, I have to say. But the only thing about Mostert is he has always been kind of injury prone, and I believe he has a knee issue now. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when I think of Mostert, I believe he was the guy who 2 years ago, maybe 3, he was going down, right? And he fell and he went to support, as he was going down to the ground, he went to support himself with his arm and he broke his arm, I think. And you could just see it, he broke his arm and you could just see his hand and his wrist just flailing around afterwards. It was uncomfortable to watch, but I'm pretty sure that was him. But anyway, he seems to unfortunately, of course, he's a spectacular player, dynamic to watch when he's on the field. I wish he would stay healthy all the time. Never gonna wish injuries upon anybody, but he is he's the Will Fuller of running backs, perhaps, with injury issues that he just can't seem to quite kick. But hopefully, for your sake, he won't miss too much time here. But actually, that rushing touchdown was most of his points there. He got 18.7. And then Latavius Murray goes for 5.3. Eric Ebron, since there was no Kittle, he goes for 7.3. Tyler Boyd in the flex Thursday night, he went for 20.2. Your kicker was Butker. He made 2 50-yard plus field goals. He went for about 13 or so. 13 and a half. And then the Baltimore Ravens defense, they did pretty well this week. Yahoo says 22. That would bump you up about 12, I would guess. Maybe 9. I don't think you had a long touchdown. Oh, you did have the long touchdown bonus from Mostert there. So the actual score, I'm going to guess, would be +9, so about 31 from the Ravens defense would be my guess there. But anyway, it was way more than enough to get the 50-point victory over Ed Lager this week. He had Lamar Jackson go for only 37.5. His 3 receivers, hoping for big things this year from the Lamar Jackson to Hollywood Brown connection. So far, it's been pretty quiet, but we will see what happens going forward. You also had Mike Evans and Sterling Shepard in place of the injured, currently Michael Thomas. So Brown, Brown, Evans, and Shepard. Brown goes for 9.2. Evans goes for 23.5. But Shepard only goes for 5.5. I believe he is now injured with a turf toe, something like that. So he might be out for 2 to 3 weeks, something like that. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him there. This depending on, of course, the severity of his injury. Your 2 running backs, David Johnson, tough matchup at Baltimore, who was your opponent's defense. And then Kareem Hunt. Johnson goes for 7. Hunt actually scores 2 touchdowns and gets you just over 24. Tight end, you went with O.J. Howard, I believe, after he scored a touchdown in week 1. He only goes for 2 points this week. Then you picked up and played Traquan Smith in the flex. Again, Michael Thomas out injured. Let's see. Not too bad of a performance from him. You would have liked to see maybe a touchdown in there. But the team actually didn't look too good last night, the Saints. But Smith went for 13.5 points. Not too bad. Your kicker, McManus, gets you about 6.5 to 7. And then the Denver Broncos defense. I was just talking a little bit to Josh about this because he thought I got some of these scores wrong here, but said this doesn't have to happen too often. But again, I'm not saying I should add real quick. I'm not making fun of you, Josh, for thinking that I had some scores wrong. I appreciate the effort and double checking, going through and making sure that you never know if I might miss something. You all of you should go back and check your scores just to make sure I have them right. But they were, just to say they were correct. But again, this back to the point. This doesn't happen very often. But Yahoo's score for your defense, your actual score is actually less than what Yahoo says. Doesn't happen too often. Yahoo says 10, but the actual score was 7. So a lot of single-digit scores here for Ed Lager. 37 from his quarterback, 220s, a 13, and the rest are single digits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single-digit scores. That's 60% of your roster. That's not going to get it done more often than not. And this week, you dropped to 0-2. You are all the way down in 12th place now. And Yinzer Jags, he moves to 2-0. He is in 2nd place. All right, going right down the line here. Next, we had Disco versus the Shawshank Athletics. And this one was not in question much at all, thanks to some historically bad play and scores from Kirk Cousins this week. We'll get into it real briefly here. Disco gets the comfortable win with only 150.45 points this week. Not sure he would have, let's see. The only other team he would have beat was Ed Lager. And Shawshank fails to break 100. He fails to break 90 as he goes for 86.35 this week. Disco, his 150, let's see, he had Tom Brady go for just under 33. He picked up Scotty Miller in place of Chris Godwin, who was out this week. He only goes for 3.2. Plugged in Christian Kirk, because again, then Galladay was out. So had some injury problems here the first couple weeks for Disco. Kirk goes for 8 points. But the good news is Godwin should be back. Galladay should be back, if not this week, very soon. So just looking at Disco's bench here and the guys he didn't use, looks like once they come back, Disco kind of lucking out this week in terms of who you matched up against. Probably should be 0-2. Let's be perfectly honest about it. But that's not the case. And so we will see what happens, because Disco should be a team to watch out for going forward, because he's going to be getting probably his 2 best wide receivers back into the lineup here very soon going forward. His other wide receiver was Paris Campbell, who actually only had 7 rushing yards before going out with an injury. I don't think it's a season ender, but I see here they put him on IR. So he's going to be out for a few weeks. Fortunately for you, you're getting a couple of those wide receivers back here. You have Godwin, Galladay, and Brandon Cooks, all startable wide receivers. Currently they were on your bench this week. So while you don't like having injured players there on your roster, just in case who knows what's going to happen going forward, have some depth on your bench there. Hopefully you're able to put together a more ideal starting lineup going forward. Your 2 running backs, Taylor from the Colts and Miles Sanders back from his injury. Taylor goes for 22 and Sanders goes for 20. Waller went off on Monday night there. He had 12 for 103 yards. 1 touchdown. He goes for 28.3. Zeke goes for 22.2. Only 1 rushing touchdown there. I was wondering how Zeke's score was so low, and for a minute how Dak Prescott's score was so high. But for some reason, Dak took 3 of the rushing touchdowns himself this week. Didn't watch the game, so I'm curious exactly what happened with those plays. But yeah, you would have liked to see Zeke maybe get a little bit more points there in the huge comeback that they had to make there. Especially said, how often is Dak going to steal 3 rushing touchdowns there from Zeke? But you got the win, so that's really all that matters at the end of the day. 22.2 for Zeke. Kicker, Bailey, only 2 points, maybe 2.5. And then your defense, Tennessee. Looks like they didn't do too bad. Gave up a lot of points against the Jacksonville there. Don't think you had any long touchdown bonuses. Kicker didn't do too much, so it's only a 3-point difference there, so Tennessee's score must have been 11. But again, way more than enough to get past the Shawshank Athletics, who shuffled his lineup, made a trade this past week, and again said he went with Kirk Cousins this week over Jared Goff. And Kirk Cousins, perhaps the worst statistical game, at least in terms of Tonto's Demise statistics. He goes for 7.65 points. 11 completions, 3 interceptions. That takes you down to 2 points. And then his 113 passing yards. That is about 5.65 points there. So, yeah, no rushing stats for him. No touchdowns, all those interceptions. 7.65 for Kirk Cousins. Wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, John Brown, and Shenault from Jacksonville. Tyreek gets a touchdown, 99 yards, 21.8. John Brown continues his good start, another 18.2 points from him. Shenault gets you 10.2, recently acquired in that trade, which meant your running backs this week, instead of Gurley and Chubb, you had Gurley and Malcolm Brown. 6 for Gurley, 4.5 for Brown. Andrews, your tight end, only 4 points from him, kind of one catch. Kind of surprising there. T.Y. Hilton, the other recently acquired player in your trade, in the flex this week, he only goes for about 6 points. Kicker was Prater, he goes for 2. And then the Saints defense, a poor performance for them last night against New Orleans. I actually believe that your score 6 is correct. I'm pretty sure that I did not have to make any adjustments to Shawshank Athletics team because Prater only made PATs, so there were no fractional points to tack on there. And the Saints defense score was correct. So, yeah, only 86.35. Needless to say, Shawshank Athletics, Josh, you are this week's team eliminated in the knockout pool. And just to take a quick look, and I think I was chatting with Josh a little bit earlier just to see if we could figure out what had happened here this week in week 2. If he had made some different roster decisions and changes here, if he had, let's see, because in week 1, he had obviously Jared Goff and Chubb in his lineup, assuming that he would have, if we assume that he had Goff this week and had not made this trade, which would have put Chubb in his lineup, I assume he would have benched Fournette and assuming he kept Malcolm Brown in there, who he picked up recently and had a good game last week. That means instead of his actual week 2 lineup, if we assume that he had Jared Goff in there, his only other available wide receiver, I think, would have been Rager from the Eagles. So it would have been Hill, Brown, and Rager as his wide receivers, Gurley and Chubb as his running backs, and then in the flex, probably Malcolm Brown, it doesn't really matter. But the three receivers, the three running backs, that would have been probably the starting lineup. And I believe he said if that would have been the actual starting lineup, that he actually would have just barely won this week. I didn't actually run the numbers here, but it looks like Goff and Cousins both had 0.65. So if you take off 7 from Goff's number there, that takes you down to 39. So if we tack on 39 to the 86 there, that's what, 125? And then, I think, is that correct? And then Chubb had 30. So you would have needed 25 points from Chubb, because that would have been, because Ty would have been out of your lineup there. I think Chubb had like 29 point something. So let's say 30. Hilton had 5.8. So that's about the 25 points that you needed to get the win. Although Chenault, assuming you started Rieger, that's 2 points less than what he scored, Chenault said. Chenault scored 2 points more than Rieger here. So, I don't know if you would have won. Maybe you actually might have lost by 2 if that would have been correct here. I'm not exactly certain. I'd have to actually, I don't want to sit here, waste time here figuring it out, the exact numbers here, what would have happened. But I'll have to go back and figure it out for sure, and get back to you guys on this. Either way, it doesn't matter in the end. What the decisions that were made, and I believe Josh said even if he had started, had not made that trade, done different things with his lineup, he was actually pretty set on Kirk Cousins this week. Whatever advice he was listening to, they really talked him up and convinced him to make that change this week. So even if we can speculate whether or not some of his lineup changes would have gotten him a win or loss this week and changed the outcome of this matchup, all that speculation is pretty much for naught, because he was, again, pretty set on starting Kirk Cousins, which meant pretty much means a definite loss this week here. So enough about the matchup. Did I cover everybody? I think I did. Disco, he moves to 1-1. He is in 7th place, while Shawshank Athletics falls to 1-1, just below Disco in 8th place. All right, then we have Darkwing Jut versus the Dub C Hooligans. Darkwing Jut gets the victory this week, 190.0, even there, and then 181.4 for the Dub C Hooligans. I believe Dub C was pretty much finished going into the Sunday night game, and he had Russell Wilson. He needed about 65 points or so from Russell Wilson. Let's check my. I don't think I wrote down the pre-Monday numbers here. Usually I do. I didn't do it this week, so I'm not exactly sure what the margin was. I believe Justin's team was finished, and Dub C only had Russell Wilson left. So based on you lost by 9 and Wilson scored 56, that means that you must have needed about 65 from Russell Wilson to actually pull out a crazy victory here. The way Russell Wilson was playing, he definitely could have done that, because actually we were talking about it a little bit on the lineup. They got the ball back near the end of the game, but I think they actually had a 3-and-out. You know what? They threw that long pass on 3rd and short, when I don't know why that's the decision that they made. Again, another Seahawks questionable decision when you need a short, throwing the ball when everybody thinks you should run it, or at least go for you only need a short distance there. but that is not what they decided to do. The pass was incomplete. He threw a bomb down the field like a 40-yarder. It was incomplete. But if you think about that, if they maintain that drive for a little bit, Russell Wilson ended up with 288 passing yards. So if he gets 12 more passing yards, that's a 3-point bonus for breaking 300. Probably a couple receptions in there. Even if he completes that pass, the long pass that they attempted on third down there that didn't go, that would have pushed him up over 300. That completion, if it had been a completion, was said if you count the bonus, 3 points for the bonus there, 1 for the completion, that's 4, and 2.5 to 3 points for the yardage there. That's 6.5, 7 points just on that play. And perhaps Russell Wilson gets the 65 points that the Dub C Hooligans needed to get a win this week. But I can sit here and speculate for a while, all the different things that could have happened differently. Dub C Hooligans got lucky last week and squeaked out a win. This week, it wasn't quite enough as he gets the loss here. But maybe I should talk about the winner of this matchup a little bit. Not the Dub C Hooligans, Darkwing Jet. He has Carson Wentz go for 38.8. But I have a funny feeling after watching the Sunday night game that Cam Newton will be in Darkwing Jet's starting lineup henceforth and hereafter. Because he went for 70.5 points this week. And what did Cam do last week? 42. Perhaps he won't be. He's got the Raiders coming up. Cam's got the Chiefs coming up next week. So we will see how he performs. He should be putting up some pretty good numbers here going forward. Still troubles me, all the rushing touchdowns that he's getting, that they're giving him those short carries when they get down to the goal line. As a quarterback, again, I know he's good at it. He's having success with it, but that's still always a dangerous position to consistently be putting your quarterback into there if you're the New England Patriots. So we will see how that plays itself out through the rest of the season here. Again, okay, Wentz 38.8. His 3 receivers, Beckham Jr., DJ Moore. Still thinking about the Seahawks there. DJ Moore and Robert Woods. Beckham goes for a bounce-back game, 17.5. DJ Moore goes for an even 20 points, and Woods goes for 11.3. McCaffrey and Drake, your 2 running backs. McCaffrey goes for 24.8, and 2 touchdowns from him. But as I previously said, and you guys I'm sure already know, I believe he has a high ankle sprain, and he is currently slated to be out 4 to 6 weeks. We will see if it's closer to the 4-week side there for him. Drake goes for 11.5. Gesicki, your tight end, big game for him this week as they were coming back. The Dolphins came back from they were down. They stayed pretty competitive in this game versus Buffalo. They were down most of the game, though. They made a comeback. Some garbage time, perhaps, points here for Gesicki. He goes for 27. Gallup in the flex there, he goes for 7.8, only 2 catches. Unfortunately, in a game where they had to score, they were down big and had to come back and score 40 points. To win that game, you obviously would have liked to see more from Michael Gallup, all the receivers in this matchup. And Fairbairn, your kicker, goes for about 13, I think. And then the Rams defense, they go for, I believe, Yahoo says 15. I think it was 18. Dub C Hooligans, not quite enough this week. Again, Russell Wilson needed 65, got you 56. Your 3 receivers, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, and DJ Chark. Robinson, 6.3, 13 for Kupp, and 12.5 for Chark. Edwards-Helaire and James Robinson, your 2 running backs. Tougher matchup this week for Edwards-Helaire. He does have 6 catches there. He gets you 13 points. Robinson goes over 100 yards and a touchdown. He gets you 24 points this week. Evan Engram, 12.5. Ronald Jones in the flex. Good matchup against the Carolina Panthers. It seems like so far, I believe, any fantasy player, especially running backs that you have on your team going against this year, it's going to be the Carolina Panthers. You get those guys in your lineup. Ronald Jones, he goes for surprisingly only 10.7. Unfortunately for you and Shawshank, who had him on the bench, it was Leonard Fournette who really took it to the Carolina Panthers this week. He had over 100 yards and maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns there. Koo, your kicker from Atlanta, he goes for about 17 points. Several field goals there from him. Several PATs too. And again, in that 40-39 shootout with Dallas. San Francisco defense, looks like they go for about 13 or 16, something like that. But they suffered some major injuries this week to the defensive line there. So we will see going forward how much that affects the quality of their quality of their defense. I think they're already missing Richard Sherman, right? I think he might be on IR, so he's out for a couple weeks. But those two guys, Bosa and the other guy whose name I can't recall at the moment, I believe they are both ACLs and done for the year. So that's going to be a tricky situation there for San Francisco's defense. Perhaps they were not as dominant so far this year as you were probably hoping. So maybe it's going to be interesting to see if you keep committing to them as we go forward here, at least for the next week or two, see how they perform to decide how you want to play it going forward here. So that'll be another thing interesting to watch here with your team in the league. So, but anyway, Darkwing Jut, he moves to 2-0. He is in 4th place, while the Dub C Hooligans, they drop to 1-1. They are in 6th place. All right, count close, doesn't count. He's now Saquon, it ain't so, because he lost Saquon for the year this past week. But as I said already, Saquon, who needs Saquon this week? Because Saquon, it ain't so, gives the Hillbillies on PCP another thump this week as Hillbillies scores an impressive 194.45 points, even more than he scored last week when he lost. But what can you say? You went up against another 200-plus score team. Saquon, it ain't so, as you may recall, was in last place after week 1. He was knocked out after week 1. And he jumps all the way around to being the highest scoring team of the week, highest scoring team of the year thus far, replacing Yinzer Jags. As Saquon, it ain't so, goes for 244.7. Wow. Dak Prescott, he goes for 83.3 in that comeback. 34 completions, again, 3 rushing touchdowns, 450 passing yards, 83.3 points from him. So basically, all the rest of your players just had to show up to get you over 200 points. Juju gets you 11.8. Edelman, actually the highest receiving total of Edelman's career, I believe this game was, 179 yards. He goes for just under 29. Jarvis Landry gets you 7.5. Again, Saquon Barkley, who needs him this week? Only 2.8 points from him before, again, he goes out with that unfortunate injury. Ingram, the other running back, gets you 15.7. Jonnu Smith, the tight end, he catches 2 touchdowns, 24.5 points. James Conner goes over 100 yards and a touchdown, just over 23 points. Lutz, your kicker, goes for about 6.5. And then the Indianapolis Colts defense. Yahoo says 23. Let's see, it must have been closer to 40 based on the point differential between Yahoo and your actual score there. So good quarterbacks, solid. Jay, you had solid buns this week, extra solid, carrying you to the highest score perhaps that we will see this season, 244. That's tough to beat by pretty much anybody. So you got to be feeling pretty good on one hand that you bounced all the way back from the bottom to the top this week. But Dak Prescott's not going to score 83 points every week. And unfortunately, said Saquon Barkley is down for the year. And that's going to be tricky probably for you going forward. A lot of you guys had big games this week. That's not going to happen every week, unfortunately. Maybe it will. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But said you got some solid players in there to fill in for Saquon. You didn't even need him this week to score the highest of the year so far. So, but again, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of good scores from all your other players there. But you're going to need them moving forward for the rest of the year, as you have to carry on without Saquon Barkley. As for Hillbillies on PCP, once again, he gets defeated by puts up a big score, impressive score, a score that's usually going to get you a win. I think it was 190 last week. It was 194 this week. But just bad luck once again for you. Not too much you can do about it. Just like Mighty Midgets said, you're putting up scores that are going to get you wins more often than not. Just some bad luck here in these first 2 weeks. And said that's only 2 weeks. We got 11 to go. It's most likely. I understand that it's really frustrating and aggravating right now, but most likely things are going to start balancing themselves out here and probably swinging back in your favor for some matchups here going forward for the rest of the season there. So as discouraging as these first 2 weeks are, your team's putting up the points. So again, things will probably work themselves out here. No real significant, again, as I said with Mighty Midgets, other than Cortland Sutton, who he wasn't using already anyway. You guys, your teams are putting up points, and you're mostly still intact in terms of health-wise. So, again, it's upsetting and disappointing right now, but things could certainly be a lot worse. You've got a healthy team, so at this point in time, just having a healthy team is something to be thankful for and could give you an advantage over some other people in the league going forward as the season plays out. All right, for Hillbillies, Roethlisberger goes for 52.5, Keenan Allen 16.5, DK Metcalf just over 19, Slayton 6.3, Dalvin Cook 17, Jacobs 13.5, Hunter Henry 14.5, Judy back in the flex there 10.2, Zerline, your kicker, goes for about 12 or so, and then the Steelers defense, Yahoo says 21. I'm going to guess the actual score was about 30, maybe 33, something like that. I'm going to guess 30. Because you get a couple of field goals there from your kicker. So, but yeah, again, Hillbillies, what can you do? Just bad luck on that matchup, and you fall to 0-2. You are in 9th place, while Saquon, it ain't so. He gets the win this week. He's 1-1. He is in 5th place. All right, and finally, we had Springfield Isotopes going up against Possum Magic. This one actually the score ends up being just slightly behind. It's going to take a little bit of time to get used to the name change. To saying Saquon, it ain't so, which was another opening song consideration. Say it with the Weezer reference there and Jay there. But I think it's been done before already, I'm pretty sure, at some point in years past. Perhaps by both me and the podcasters I want to say that is accurate, but I can't say for certain there. Nobody really cares anyway, but that's why I didn't go with that song. Anyway, Springfield Isotopes. Possum Magic, I believe, is in the same position as Hillbillies on PCP so far this year, because I believe Possum Magic actually put up a pretty good score in week 1, but was defeated by, I believe he went up against Detling by the Yinzer Jags, who, as we know, had the highest score in week 1, and then he goes up against another 200 and some point score this week, despite scoring at 190 points himself. The Isotopes go for 242, while Possum Magic puts up, again, a very respectable 189.9. For the Isotopes, we have Patrick Mahomes. He goes for 60.5. Calvin Ridley, just under 30. Will Fuller actually goes for 0 points. Deontay Johnson, 23.2. Aaron Jones, with his long touchdown bonus, he goes out for 51.5. Alvin Kamara on Monday night goes for 38.5. Noah Fant, 17.7. Naheem Hines in the flex, only 1.5 points there. Kicker Suckup from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he goes for about 7.5. And the Buffalo Bills defense, Yahoo says 3, but I believe the actual total was 12. For why are we talking about Shawshank? Possum. Possum. You get it. I don't know what's going on. I'm not, again, as you know, not used to talking this much. And I see we're already at over 50 minutes here, so I want to kind of move things along. Possum Magic, he has Matthew Stafford go for 37.5. Scary Terry goes for 25.5. Marvin Jones, 12.3. Tyler Lockett, 19.5. Derrick Henry, only 8.5 points there, surprising from him, especially against Jacksonville, who we know he historically usually just, that's the team he had the 99-yard bulldozer touchdown run against a year or two back. He usually goes wild on them, but he didn't this week, only 8.4. Chris Carson, another receiving touchdown this week, just under 20 points from him. Jared Cook goes for about 9.5. Diggs in the flex, solid, again, another solid game from him. Doubles up his week 1 total, just taking a quick look there. He goes for 32.5 points this week. Gonzalez, your kicker, goes for about 13. And then the Kansas City Chiefs defense, Yahoo says 11. Your score is only bumped up 2 points there. So I believe Kansas City's defense score must have been correct. I want to say, because you're only bumped up 2 points there. So, yeah, that must have been your kicker and some other stuff there. That must have been the difference there. But anyway, again, Possum Magic, same thing with, again, Hillbillies on PCP. Not much we can say. You put up a score that's going to get you a win way more often than not. But these first 2 weeks for you have just been said Mighty Midgets, Hillbillies on PCP, and Possum Magic here. Those 3 teams, just you're all 0-2, and for no other reason. I mean, you're all putting up good scores. Just bad luck thus far. All I can say is, again, reinforce the idea that the pendulum will swing back in your favor in terms of luck. As long as you keep putting up good scores, eventually things will, again, come back, balance out, perhaps move back into your favor here. So no reason to hang your heads these first couple weeks here, despite some difficult losses, guys, for you guys. Again, Possum here. You lost Marlon Mack, but I don't really know that you were going to use him that much. And just looking at your roster here, you've got a healthy lineup, so that's something to be thankful for. going forward. Again, after all of the events this past week and the first combined after week 1 there, just as the injuries keep piling up, I know the losses are piling up for a couple of you. It's only 2 weeks, so don't get too discouraged. Again, at this point, there are some teams who are reeling thanks to injury problems, and we will see what they're able to do going forward. I know that saying that you're going to defeat teams who have injury problems, some people may consider that unsportsmanlike, but what are you supposed to do? That's just how it goes. You in an ideal world, everybody would be facing each other's ideal lineups every single week, but that is just not the way things play out in the real world. So yeah, again, it's for those guys who are 0-2 and had some tough losses here these first couple weeks. So don't get discouraged. You're doing well and you're healthy, so things can only go up from here. Isotopes, with this win, they are 2-0, and they actually jump up to first place, while Pasta Magic, he is 0-2. He is in 10th place. All right. Shawshank Athletics, again, they are the second team eliminated from the knockout pool. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed here in my notes? I don't think so. Going forward, let's take a quick peek at what's coming up here in week 3 before we say goodbye. We've got, let's see, Saquon and Dub C, both teams 1-1, going head-to-head. 2-0 teams. One of you is going to get your first loss. Darkwing versus Gags. That should be interesting. Your projections are pretty even there. Yinzer Jags going up against Disco, trying to stay undefeated. Projected to actually lose by 10 in this matchup, as Disco starting to get some of his best players back from injury. So we will see how that shapes up. Speaking of the 0-2 teams, Pasta Magic and Hillbillies on PCP, you guys are playing each other this week. So one of you is definitely going to 0-3, and one of you will get your first win. 0-3, one of you will be singing the 0-3 blues after this week for sure. Looking at your projections, they are about 1 point off. So, but again, as we all know, the Yahoo projections aren't as accurate as maybe some of us would like them. It makes things interesting to look at, but they don't always end up being very correct or accurate. Then we have Mighty Midgets going up against Shawshank. Mighty Midgets trying to get his first win. Shawshank perhaps still reeling a little bit from that 86-point performance last week. Mighty Midgets is a 13-point favorite in this one. Then we have the Isotopes at 2-0 going up against Ed Lager. Unfortunately, first place versus 12th place in this matchup, as the Isotopes look to stay in first and go to 3-0. About a 30. Yahoo's projection is about a 30-point difference here. Ed Lager, again, he will probably be missing Michael Thomas, probably Sterling Shepard here, so not too injury problems here. I'm disappointed though, because I was looking forward to this after the draft. Whenever I was looking at who I was playing each week, and my quarterback is Mahomes. Your quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Chiefs are playing the Ravens this week on Monday Night Football, and those are our two quarterbacks going head-to-head. Isotopes versus Ed Lager, Mahomes versus Lamar Jackson, head-to-head this week. So still, that's going to be an interesting matchup to watch. Baltimore has been pretty tough, so it's in Baltimore, I'm pretty sure, so hard to be too optimistic about Mahomes this week. We'll see what happens in a tough matchup here. But still, just unfortunately for Ed Lager, some underperforming players and some injury problems for him early on here this season. So but we will see if he's able to avoid the 0-3 Blues and perhaps upset the Isotopes here going in week 3. So we just hit the 1 hour mark. That's enough for me. You guys, I don't know how many of you even make it to this point. Yeah, there was a trade here earlier this evening. Mentioned it real briefly. Dub C and Gags to Riches. Another trade for Gags to Riches with Dub C. First one was with Shawshank, as you know. And everybody, how many times do people have to keep saying, don't trade with Gags? I'm pretty sure Dub C has probably said it multiple times in the line app himself. Don't trade with Gags. But then you think you're getting a good deal, and then you end up making a trade with Gags. So we will see how those things play out. We will let the podcasters do their thing in the trade discussions there. And yeah, nothing else to summarize from week 2. Going to be a fun week here in week 3. So yeah, I hope that all of your teams meet or exceed expectations. All of your players come out of it healthy, and we have 6 solid matchups here in week 3. So thanks, guys, for listening or watching or whatever it is you do. Again, good luck, and we will see you back here next week for the week 3 recap. All right, once again, thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.